Well, if it's going to be, it's up to me to fulfill my dreams and possibilities with dedication and motivation to inspire thousands from all nations. When times are tough and breaks you down, just smile with toughness and rebuild from the ground. During tough times, adversity is a lot. Just remember, time flies, but you are the pilot. Good evening, everybody. What's going on? Hope you guys are doing great. This is Jay Hunter Lee here. Welcome to our Monday Motivational Power Talk with Jay Hunter Lee. I am, of course, Jay Hunter Lee, and we're going to have something very heavy and deep that we're going to discuss tonight. And I got some friends with me, and you guys are getting ready to meet them. They're getting ready to throw some heavy stuff on to you. But before we do, let me introduce you guys to my drink for tonight, Arnold Palmer. Now, you guys, listen. Arnold Palmer, let me tell you something. I think I gave you guys a brief history on this. Arnold Palmer is a famous golfer, played golf, and he used to ask for his drinks. He always asked for lemonade and iced tea mixed together. It was a drink he always loved. He asked people for it. So they actually named that drink after him. So it's called an Arnold Palmer. You guys remember I had the bottle before, but I got the can this time. Depends on where you buy it from. They said the bottle or the can. Either way, it tastes good. This is by Arizona, by the way. So those of you who like tea, you like iced tea, you like lemonade. If you like them both, put it together and you got an Arnold Palmer. So, folks, I got some help tonight. Why do I have some help? I don't know it all. Anything that I don't have a 100% knowledge of, I don't discuss it much. I don't jump out there. I don't put myself out there because I don't want nobody to clean my clock. So what did I do? I put myself in position to bring some folks in who have done much more heavier research than I have done in this topic that we're going to be discussing this tonight. Okay? So we got my lady here. We got Quintina Lee. Call her Tink, y'all. She's in the house, in the house. Watch your mouth, she says. But folks, we getting ready to go on. We're about to dive into it. I'm about to bring my guys here. You guys get ready because it's going to be fire. I hope you guys are ready. I hope you have an open mind, not a biased mind. Open mind, not a biased mind. So listen, whatever we've learned about the Civil War, whatever we learned about slavery, I'm not going to tell you to trash it. I'm just going to tell you to be open to receive much more information that we've never been taught in schools, from whoever political party you support, all across the board. So without further ado, I'm going to bring two guys in here with me. I want you guys to be ready because they're going to bring the house down. We have, of course, you see my main man here, William Akimba Crowley. Y'all remember him as the credit man. Remember, he's the guy that fixes your credit the right way, not going through these companies and say, hey, they're just going to dispute stuff. No, he's going to go through the Constitution to get your stuff fixed. That's the man there. We'll talk about credit another time. That's another sermon for another Sunday. And also we have my man, Tony LeGrant, up in here. Good to see you, my man. Really appreciate you guys coming in. I'm going to unmute William Crowley first because I want him to go ahead and go into his background with us. As you guys know, he already talked about credit. We've had him on before about a year ago or a year or two ago. So we're about overdue for another time to get him back on board on a podcast with us. But we are going to have a different topic for tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my man, Mr. Crowley. Go ahead, brother.
Hey, testing. Can you hear me first of all?
Clear.
All right, cool. Okay, all right. So what's up, Jay Lee? I've been following you for some years now, listening to some of your topics, and I like the way you address it from your non-traditional perspective, I guess you would say. Whereas, you're challenging the status quo instead of just going along with the status quo, the mainstream media, the narrative. What I found is that mainstream media, that narrative that's been put in front of us, it benefits somebody, but it doesn't really benefit you as the recipient. But it benefits the initiator, I would say. uh, I've always been against that. I'm 60 years old. I've been doing this, studying this stuff since I was in my early 20s because I was just totally dissatisfied with the information that was presented to me. But regardless of what the information presented to me, if it is presented to me, I have to make sure that as a scientist, you want to be able to look at the opposite of what the information that they haven't revealed to you. You must bring that out and then compare it. But what they expect us to do and what we do is just accept whatever the mainstream narrative is, and then we'll debate anybody down based on that mainstream narrative. I just had a discussion with a friend the other day. I was presenting some of this alternative information, revisionist information, whatever you want to call it, and they wanted to battle with me. And I said, well, okay, I've read the information that you're talking about, and I read the revisionist information. Have you read the revisionist information? No, I don't need to. I said, well, why not? I mean, you shouldn't you look at the alternative, no matter how ridiculous it seems to you, because you're not the authority on truth. What you are is the recipient of somebody else's information. So if since we all of that, then why not get the balance or the positive and the negative of an issue and then make a decision. But what I find that most of us do is we just accept whatever's given to us, and if it sounds good and if it, we feel good about it, then we accept it and we take it as, okay, this is the truth. And I'm not here to really talk to you about discuss whether this is true or not. I'm just saying, how are you doing your research? Are you going after both that which your comfort level and your non-comfort level? And then you bring the two together, and then you can make a balanced decision. Some of the information that I found out that was contrary to my belief system was devastating. Like, for instance, I told Tony Anthony DeGrant, we had mentioned earlier, well, should we go back to African slavery? I said, no, people probably won't be able to accept that. But no, let me go ahead and delve in that just right quick, just for a minute. I come from a African revolutionary standpoint, okay? And so what's been presented to me by a lot of the great African historians out there is the positive side of African history. We don't deal with the negative issues. And this brother that's on the phone with me today, he kind of opened my eyes up to the homosexual issue. And I'm not trying to bash anybody for homosexuality, but we said that the Europeans created homosexuality. I don't think that's true, based on the information that me and Tony have done our research on. And Tony actually brought it to my attention when we were doing a discussion on the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion some years ago, and it may still be on YouTube. And so that was devastating to me. Being an African historian, I was like, yes, we were the first people. We introduced science, mathematics, astronomy, religion. We've introduced everything to the world. So in that case, we could tell our children that and say, now you don't have to look at yourselves as some defeated cause, because you have a purpose here. You have a purpose to maintain the historical relevance of our ancestors. And we must, be back on top and do what we're supposed to do. And I'm not saying that we still can't do that, but we have to bring along the contradictory elements as well in order to make that a fuller picture. So we're not trying to present to our people, oh, we're some saintly people, we're perfect, and we don't do anything wrong. As a matter of fact, the more we say we haven't done wrong, the more wrong I find that we have done, our ancestors and even current day. So I'm kind of rambling there, but I did want to just present that narrative before we get started. So
okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. I appreciate that. Tony LeGrant, good to see you, man. I'm glad to finally see you again. It's been a while.
Sir, yes, sir. Yeah, man.
You remember him, right, Tone?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So from St. Pete Business League, yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, give us a little bit of your background, Tony. You got quite a bit of resume, man. I heard so much about you, man. I was like, man, he must be paying William Crowley some money or something.
Nah, not me, man. If anything, not me. Nah, but I come from, like Will said, I come from how he comes from it is from an African political standpoint, from a background. I come from a religious standpoint. And so from a very young age, I've always had this idea that there was more to it than what was being taught to me. You know, going to Sunday school. I remember my mom taking me to Sunday school, Church of God. Uh, you know, I have a lot of family members that are Church of God. Um, I've always asked, you know, the questions, you know, well, what happened if this and what happens if that didn't happen? And so when my mom came to pick me up, of course, the Sunday school teacher always say, you know, Mr. LeGrand, he's going to be, you know, very bright. He has a lot of questions. And even, you know, it just followed me even throughout the military, you know, what is really going on, you know, until I finally ran up on this group, United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors. Now I joined them uh, and started learning a lot of information. But looking back on it in hindsight now, I can say that it really needs to be updated. And one of the things, now in United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors, the leader was Malachi York. Okay, now he was arrested and basically is buried in the jail. I mean, he ain't never seen the light of day ever. I mean, the sentence that they gave him is ridiculous, I think, but they did it. But one thing that he would always say that stuck with me was, don't believe anything I say. Check it out for yourself. And so that was one of the things that stuck with me. And even to this day, I'm always open-minded and trying to research and find out what is really what's going on. So I would have to say that a lot of the things that the school system teaches, a lot of the things that we learn, a lot of people are just regurgitating a lot of things that they learned in school. And I guess we have lost our ability to critically think. And because of that, we're just mindless, a lot of us. I would say that 90% of the things that we're taught, whether it comes, you know, down from slavery to banking to to religion, 90% of it is basically false. The way they teach it to us and how they present it to us. One of the things in the Bible, and I think it's me and Will's favorite quote, is in Hosea 4:6. You know, my people shall be destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And I think that's what's happening to us now. I think a lot of people are waking up, but I think a lot of us are being destroyed for lack of knowledge. So I guess I'll just end it right there. And I'll let you have it back, Jay.
Appreciate that, man.
Yep.
A lot of heavy history there. I want to ask you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. I know we have some people watching on Twitch and YouTube, and a few people on LinkedIn as well. All you Facebook folks, come on, let's get these likes up. Let's get these likes up before I start playing some hometown blues in here to get you guys to cooperate. Get these likes up, folks.
Can we like it too, or no? We can't do it, can we?
Yeah, you can afterward.
Oh, okay.
You can after, yeah. Let's get these likes up. I appreciate it. Get these likes up. Thank you for those who are watching on YouTube and Twitch also. I don't know who you guys are yet until you comment, because I don't have my second station set up where I can just see if people come in. I'm looking from my main studios. So thank you guys. We got a question from Willette. We'll get to some Q&As afterwards. But since you just started, I'm gonna go ahead and get your question out there early. Willette, please provide the documents where our ancestors practiced homosexuality.
But you want me say it now or what?
Yeah. But if you want to, yeah, you can go ahead.
Well, if you check the book of the Dead, it's actually interpreted or translated, could be transliterated by what's his name? Book of the Dead. Gosh, I had the name. I don't tip my tongue. But look up the Book of Dead. I'll think of the name here in a minute. Tony, you remember the name? The author's name?
I can go get the book.
He's out of England.
We mentioned the book. You have to be, as the person, you have to do your due diligence and seek it out. So if you ask a question, then we'll give a source, a general source.
E.A. Wallace Budge.
But I think the person will be doing themselves a disjustice or injustice by just always asking, because that's what a lot of professors do. That's what a lot of students do. They sit and they tell you what they want you to learn. I'm going to mention it to you. I'm going to put the bird in your ear, a little bird whisper in your ear. and then I want you to go find it and seek it out to make sure you show yourself approved. So from the ancient Book of the Dead, you got the 42 negative confessions, and in there you'll find a lot of the stuff that we talked about. Now, Will, you got the
Yeah, E.A. Wallace
author.
Budge. E.A.
Okay.
Wallace Budge is the author.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the sources, but go ahead, Tony. Let me let you.
No, I was done. I was just done with the 42 negative confessions. You know what I'm saying? Of the ancient Book of the Dead. That's where a lot of the commandments come from. A lot of the cultures, you know what I'm saying, starting back from ancient Africa, you know what I'm saying, they have these laws. And then you'll notice that other cultures come in, like ancient Greece, ancient Rome. You know what I'm saying? Then they create this book, the Bible. And then they all of these cultures are telling the same story. It is just coming from a different culture, translated in a different language. All these different things. So the ancient Book of the Dead, you'll find a lot of this stuff in the Bible. You'll find a lot of it in Psalms. When they talk about certain things in Psalms in the Bible, you'll find it right there in the ancient Book of the Dead.
That's by E.A. Wallace
Budge, Budge. And ask the questioner, are they familiar with the Book of the Dead or E.A. Wallace Budge?
Gotcha. Well, what I did, I went on to put it. I can't put it in the comment. I'm putting it up on the screen so everybody can see
Ancient Book of the Dead by E.A. Wallace Budge. Yeah. So that's one source. Now, of course, all of us are going to our ancient history. Even there's been debate on whether we actually are from there. Could have been Tony. You could probably expound on that about our indigenous nature here. But I still think that we have some connection with ancient Africa, even though that's the other side of Africa. If we came here as slaves, we probably would have came from the west coast of Africa. We're talking the Egypt would be the northeastern coast of Africa. So, but the Book of the Dead has some relevancy to our culture and to our ancestors in ancient Africa. So, but not just homosexuality, because let's deal with the other subject, because we shouldn't even be amazed that we introduced this type of chicanery or whatever you want to call it. Some people accept it and some people are totally against it. I'm just saying that it was part of our culture in ancient Africa, because the Book of the Dead speaks out against it. Why would the Book of the Dead speak out against it if it didn't exist?
And I don't mean to cut you off, Will, but one telling sign is the Pharaoh in Egypt, Akhenaten. You know what I'm saying? If one was to do a little bit of research and a little bit of investigating and digging, they would find that Akhenaten was that way too. He had a male lover. And so when you look at things like that, you have to critically think and say, okay, well, Akhenaten was before ancient Greece or ancient Rome. And ancient Greece was historically known as a gay culture. So when you look back on history, you say, okay, well, this man came before them. So if you keep the mindset of if they got their things, if they got a lot of their culture from us, then you would have to say, okay, it must have came from us. I mean, that's just putting it in perspective and lining it up,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Will.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead and finish up.
Well, okay. No, I just gonna just kind of agree with what Tony said, and even go on into for me as a reader of ancient African history, I studied Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Leonard Jeffries, Professor Tony Martin, and even the white historians, even studied Herodotus. But I know some of you out there may have read much more material than we have. It's not the amount of books that you read, it's the quality of input that you take to it. So I don't have to read every book out there to understand that. Look here, if we gave all this positive information to civilization, then why couldn't we have given the so-called alternative information, alternative, or some people would say the negative side, or the whatever the viewpoint you want to take with it. But the point is that we introduced slavery to them, we introduced racism to them, we introduced homosexuality, just like we introduced science, medicine, law, religion, etc. If we're gonna take credit for the good, then let's take credit for the bad too. Why not? I mean, what we were just this perfect people that were saints that didn't do anything wrong, and then when the Europeans got a hold of it, oh, they're such an evil people that they transformed it into something that was counterproductive. Now, come on now. I mean, really, we should really think about that and say, listen, even look at us current day. Current day is not a result of colonialism or racism. Why way we act the way we do because that's what we choose to do. Every race has done similar things. Okay, when they were downtrodden, as we have been in some junctures of our civilization or existence, other races. Thomas Sowell, Tony, remember that piece you sent to me on Thomas Sowell? I mean, he was showing the Europeans going through this same thing. Being harsh to each other. You talk about black on black crime, shit, there's white on white crime, there's yellow on yellow crime, there's all kinds of crime. It's just that we're going through it as well, but then it becomes something unique because we feel we look like we're the ultimate victim. We're not the ultimate victim. What's happening to us has happened to everybody else, and we even have been the initiators of it happening to others at times.
I'm glad you mentioned that part because I did watch a documentary where it stated that we may have sold slaves, but our people have kept most of them for themselves. So is that something does that kind of sound familiar in line of what you're speaking of? And if it is, can you take us a little deeper into that hole?
Well, Tony just bought a book, which I already have, and I've actually read it. Tony, you want to hold that book up? Do you have it with you, or you just ordered it today?
About
Black slave owners. Don't hold that. Don't hold the score up.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, it won't be delivered until tomorrow. I just got it.
Well, I've read the book, Black Slave Owners. Now, I don't know if it mentions Anthony Johnson, one of the biggest slaveholders in North America in the 1600s, not the 1700s or the 1800s, in the early 1600s. Anthony Johnson, who came from East Africa as a servant. He was a servant then we came here, then he had slaves. Essentially, probably what he had was servants here too. But the South has been notoriously blamed for the word slavery. But even the South, once we get into that, the South looked at it as a peculiar institution or servitude, as servants. Okay. But in the book,
I'm sorry, when you had mentioned that he came from East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say East Africa or West Africa?
East Africa. Where was he from, Tony? Oh, I haven't got my article with. Oh, I got my article with me. I'll find it. Go ahead.
Because I think I came across some information that stated that Gambia was one of the biggest slave trade.
Well, that's more West Africa there, isn't
That's
it?
West, right? That's West. Yeah. But you were speaking of East, right? Okay.
But but the book's going to get into the black slave owners. So when we do it to one another, then it becomes this thing that's not as harsh. Or when we do it to others, it's not harsh. But when they do it to us, it all of a sudden becomes harsh. Why can't it be just as harsh? Because we are an aggressive people. We're not just some saintly, loving people and non-violent people. Believe me, we're not the non-violent people. Okay, it's evident even in what we do to each other current day. Okay, which is utterly ridiculous. Okay, but the point is that the book is kind of like an apology for black slaveholders. They said that, and I'm not saying some of the black slaves didn't have their own slaves to protect them from the brutality that was supposedly being that they were experiencing at the hands of Europeans, or we call them Europeans, but some people refer to them as whites. But in the Black Revolution, most of us refer to white people as Europeans. Okay, but they supposedly had this brutal form of slavery, and then we had this mild, nice servitude that we practice. So most in the book, The Black Slave Owner, that Tony just purchased, that I've already read and I have in my library as well, it talks more about the black slaves, that what you just said, Jay, is that we bought them to get them to get them away from that harsh slavery that supposedly existed in the South. And I say that supposedly, I want to put that in quotation because there is a lot of controversy about that. Let me just say this right now. Kanye West made a statement, and of which I believe me and Tony, we both agreed, is that he said that, well, it looks like it was a choice when we were enslaved here for 300 years. And either it was a choice or it wasn't as bad as they said it was. Now, there's a concerted effort by people that have a different motivation about initiating this type of standpoint or viewpoint. Oh, the slavery was harsh and that white people participated in slavery. And that white people had us as slaves. Whites, the first slaves in this country were white. And then if you want to talk about the slave owners, you can read the volume 1 and volume 2 of The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews by the Nation of Islam, which I think they did some very good research in putting those two volumes together. And it showed that the Jews were the primary and the largest slaveholders in the South, if you want to deal with that area. Okay. So, I mean, in order to draw a conclusion on anything, whatever you're presented with, whatever narrative you're presented with, whatever you read in your little history books at your school system or your colleges where you become this PhD professor in African history or whatever, did you challenge that theory that was presented in front of you? Did you say, okay, let me look at the total opposite viewpoint before I can just accept this? I mean, it's great that we accept that we were great people. It's easy to sit up and say, oh, our ancestors were great and they didn't do no wrong. And they just built pyramids and created sciences and mathematics and religion and everything like that. But then what if you look at the flip side and say, okay, we didn't do anything. Go to the extreme left and then come somewhere in the middle and be able to bring it together. So I'm not saying our people just a brutal people. There were aspects of our people, elements of our people that were brutal. There were elements of our people that were kind and loving.
So across the world, no one's innocent.
Right, no one's innocent.
Right.
And I get tired of people playing the victim. Though we act like our slavery is something unique. Prior to our slavery here of so-called 300-400 years, and some people even venture to say 500 years, the Moors, which were Africans, okay, they were Africans that just had adapted Islam, but they were Africans, okay. And there's people that want to debate whether Moors were Africans or whatever. I say they were, and they went into Spain and they enslaved Spain for 700 years. Of course, they called it the period of enlightenment, but that was slavery too. And read the book, They Were White and They Were Slaves. And then you can kind of see the total opposite of what the narrative was painted for us when the Moors enslaved Spain for 700 years, from the 7th century to the 14th century, prior to
to 14, to the 13th century, to 1492.
Yeah. So, but it was 700 years total.
Yeah.
I don't hear the Spaniards crying about that though. 700 years of slavery. I don't hear them crying about that for some reason. And I don't hear much of the black folks even here crying about it as much as the white left loves, because it benefits the white left of this whole racist card. It benefits them for sure. And
I was going to say it's all marketing.
Huh?
I was just going to say earlier when you mentioned it that it's all marketing. Why?
Yeah.
It's more making us the victims, and then you got them to monetize, and it keeps them in power because it makes us want to need them to keep voting for them, thinking that they're going to help end racism, but they're not going to end racism.
Right.
They don't intend to.
Yeah. And who cares?
But let me add this. Let me add this real quick to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to realize something. I'm going to give you the audience, I'm going to give you two scenarios. I want you to think about grass growing. Grass grows. The growth of grass is very difficult. It's not difficult to us as we have to nurture it and water it, but it's difficult to the grass itself to grow. If you really think about it, folks, grass is growing against gravity. Okay? And I want you to take a look at a butterfly. A butterfly that comes from a caterpillar. That butterfly comes out of a cocoon, right? There was a old man and his grandson walking in the forest, and the young boy saw a butterfly struggling to get out of a cocoon. So the little boy took two sticks, pried open the cocoon to help the butterfly get out. The butterfly fell to the ground, and he asked his grandfather, how come the butterfly is not flying? So the old man told him, he said, well, grandson, the butterfly wasn't allowed to struggle out of the cocoon so it could build its muscles enough to flap its wings. And because you helped it, it did not have that opportunity, so it fell to the ground. And now the ants and other bugs down there is going to kill and eat the butterfly. So I say that to you guys because learning against what you're accustomed to is the only way of growing. We don't go out and just research. Like, if, for instance, if you go out and you want to Google something, don't Google something with a biased mindset. If somebody tell you the sky is blue, don't try to Google and try to put in the sky is really green. Doesn't work that way, folks. You got to be able to learn and take in what you're not accustomed to hearing. See, biasness is nothing but people accepting what the mind is always prepared to accept. So you have to learn how to grow by knowing and learning something that is different from what you're accustomed to learning. Learning something that is challenging your beliefs, challenging your belief, because if you can't accept facts, if these gentlemen is presenting facts to you, telling you where to go and get it, and you still don't want to accept it, then that's when you have cognitive dissonance. Because you rather live a belief that ain't got you nowhere for all your life. You can't. It's 3 P's: predict, prepare, and persevere. The 3 P's: predict, prepare, and persevere. If you can predict what's going on, even if it doesn't happen, guess what happens? You've learned against the grain of your own thoughts. You learned against the grain of your own beliefs. You learned against the grain of what you've been raised to believe. So these gentlemen here is sharing information that I have never heard. Now, you guys, some of you guys call me a walking encyclopedia. My lady Quintina Lee calls me her walking encyclopedia. But guess what? Like I said to you before, I don't know it all. I wish I did. But in order for me to get there, guess what? I told you guys, I got some help tonight. I got 2 guys who have been doing diligent research in this area, more diligent than I have, and they've been doing it for years. So these guys are very credible. That's why I had them to tell you their background, where they come from, and so you can see the credibility in what they're saying to you. And this video is recorded also, so you can see it again on YouTube, all these platforms that I mentioned earlier. Take it with you and share this information, folks. So, Brother Tony, did you want to add anything to what William just said, or were you finished, William?
No, I'm not finished, but go ahead. Let me let Tony chime in though, because I can.
Well,
I can
one of the things I like how Brother Jay, you kind of painted the picture of the butterfly. That was real cool. I see what you did there. That was real nice. About the granddad telling his son, his grandson about the butterfly, why I couldn't fly. That's real cool. But
I like that.
Those types of things. First of all, let me give a shout out to a guy named Dane Calloway, because he had mentioned something in one of his videos, and I follow him on YouTube. His name is Dane Calloway. A lot of you guys might not have heard of him. DaneCalloway, I believe. Dane Calloway. But he had mentioned about this slavery thing, and how it parallels a lot of the parallels with labor unions back in the early 1800s. So a lot of the stuff that he was bringing out, it kind of how slavery was, it kind of parallel labor unions. So now when somebody like Kanye West says, where it sound like it, slavery sound like it was a choice, perhaps maybe it was. Because when you look at slavery, and you start asking some of the questions, you have to say, well, it does kind of parallel, labor unions. When you look at things like three-fifths clause that they came up with, a lot of those things it parallels. So I'll just leave it there with Dane Calloway. And for the listening audience, they can go check out Dane Calloway on YouTube. I think he has some other channels, but one of the channels I check him out on is YouTube, Dane Calloway. Very good guy, very, very genuine. Yeah. So now going back to what you were saying earlier, Jay, about this butterfly, like I said, it was real cool. But in actuality, the butterfly couldn't fly because his wings were wet. Butterflies, when they come out of the cocoon, they have to allow a drying time. That's why he couldn't fly and he fell to the ground. And you said gravity pulled him down to the ground. That's cool. But that was the real reason. So think about the Garden of Eden when God told Adam and Eve if they ate of the fruit in the middle that they would die. And the devil was the one who came and told them the truth. See, so these are the type of things that we get twisted up and mixed up in. Not saying you, Jay, but I'm just saying, people in general, we listen to these things and we don't give it no critical thought. Now when the grandparent was telling his grandson that story, it fit the narrative. So yeah, it was a real cool story. But a lot of us, we take that same thing, that same ideology, and then we make it fit. We make it work with what's happening with us today. And it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing. But if we don't take the time to start questioning things and start breaking things down on a micro level, then we're spinning our wheels. And I'll let Will go back to it.
Yeah. So, and when Tony, every time Tony gives the example of a biblical example, then I always take him back to the Book of the Dead, because that same story is in the Book of the Dead. So the Bible is just a translation of that Book of the Dead stories, or the creation story, whatever story you want to, whatever is in your Bible is in that Book of the Dead. Okay. Now, you can read Anthony Browder, Browder, Anthony Browder. Anthony Browder is a Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization, and he'll show the comparisons of every important scripture in the Bible, in the Quran, and any other religion, and he'll show you how it came out of the ancient Book of the Dead, how the ancient Egyptians, which are the grandchildren of the Nubians and the Ethiopians. So I would, beg people to go look at it from that perspective as well. Look at that creation story from the ancient African perspective, or the ancient African. And I'm using the word Africa. I know it's called something else before that, but for unity, then we'll just say, for lack of a better phrase, we'll just use Africa. Anthony Browder, Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization, Jay. Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization. Now, Cheikh Anta Diop, D-I-O-P, Cheikh Anta Diop, Cheikh, and then Anta, A-N-T-A, Diop, or Diop. He wrote a book called Civilization or Barbarism. That's one of the first books I read he's a great African historian, okay? He comes from a Marxist back.
Civilization of what?
Civilization or barbarism. Or barbarism. O-R. Or barbarism. So he's telling people, is it civilization or is it barbarism? And he's given both examples. So on page 65 and 67, and then 85, I believe it is. And you could, read the whole book. I would encourage people that really want to start to get a better view of ancient African history. Look at Cheikh Anta Diop's book called Civilization or Barbarism. That's Cheikh, Anta, A-N-T-A, Diop, and that's French pronunciation, but it's Diop, D-I-O-P.
Yep.
Yeah, D-I-O-P. So in there, it says this. Now listen to me carefully. And I haven't got my book with me, but I'm going to paraphrase. Page 65 is talking about what that book is trying to show, is that ancient Egypt was black, and these were black people that were the initiators of civilization, and not white people that of course the movies and stuff have said in the past. So he's saying in there, if you don't, essentially saying, page 65, you're saying that, okay, if you don't believe that ancient Egypt was black, just look at the tomb of, I think it's Tutmos. That's on page 65. So you can just get the book and you get the exact phrase. So Tutmos, he's saying, look at the tombs of Tutmos, and it shows that he is a people, he's from a people that systematically slaughtered white people because of the color of their skin. 65, page 65. Tony, you got that book with you right now?
No, I don't have it next to me. I would have to go and get it.
Okay, but look at that book.
It says, though, if you give me a second, I can
go ahead, please get it, because I want them to hear this. I want them to see it exactly for what it says. It hurt me when I saw this. Okay, it said that he is part of a people that systematically killed people because of the color of their skin, the white people, because they thought they were diseased. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's one aspect, and then he's talking about the ancient Africans, the black race, systematically subjugated the white race for over 2,000 or 3,000 years. Now, that to me is not talking about some passively oriented people. This is an aggressive people that were dominating a weaker people, or more ignorant people, or less knowledgeable people, whatever the case may be. Whatever you want to attribute our enslavement to, then you can reverse that example and use it for what we did as well. But we have a tendency, when we did it, is something totally different than when they did it to us. And that's the problem to me, because if you do research from a scientific perspective, you're going to take both narratives, both extremes, both moderate examples, or whatever. Tony, 65 first. 65, right there around the second paragraph. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And I got this page in this book folded, dude. I know where it is.
Excellent.
Brother Tony, before you read it, can you just flash it up on the screen for the audience?
Oh,
sure.
The book cover, yeah. That's Civilization of Barbarism by Cheikh Anta Diop. I hope it up a little higher so they can see the name right there. Cheikh.
Got it. All right, so
page 65.
I'll go ahead and read that passage. And it says, the black race historically subjugated the white race for 3,000 years.
That's page 65, right?
Yeah, you got that? You know how many years he said? Did you get that? Now,
how many years?
I mean, that's not right and exact, but that's a good summation of it.
How many years?
3,000.
3,000 years. Not 300, not 500, not 700, 3,000. So this was before the Moors, the African Moors went into Spain. It's before the Europeans even touched foot on Africa. Before they even touched foot on Africa. Go ahead. 65.
And he said, visit the tomb of Ramesses III.
Okay, Ramses.
If you dare, interpret correctly its murals. Today, blacks are on the eve of a new start after having had their turn at being sold by the pound in the West.
Okay, you're still on page 65, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you want me to go?
67 now, 67. Okay. Where it's talking about brutally initiating a brutal nature towards them, I guess you would say. Or as killing them, systematically killing them.
So let nobody tell us that Ramesses II was white and reddish blonde, for he was in fact the ruler of a people who systematically massacred reddish blondes as soon as they met them, even on the street, on sight, basically is what he's saying, on sight.
So that there.
You want me to go further?
No, that's good. I mean, they can get the book, and then they can, of course, and then they can interpret it as well. But what I want to do is I want to challenge our great historians, because that's what they would want us to do. They don't want us to just accept what they've told us. Tony was part of Malachi's, part of the Nubians. I was part of the Huru movement. Okay, I challenge my mentor. Tony challenges his mentor. That's respectful. We're not doing it in a disrespectful way. We're just saying we got these questions, okay? And why couldn't we do what we did? Why couldn't we be just as brutal as we say that we've been brutalized. Why can't it? Why can't we? I mean, really, it doesn't make any sense to do anything other than that. And
Right.
so I wanted people to see that first of all, Diop's book, Civilization of Barbarism, and then now he talks about the Book of the Dead as well. Further down in philosophy, the African philosophy exists. In that chapter, he's going to talk about it. He's going to explore the whole Trinity, which was Aset, Asar, and Heru, which the Greeks and the Romans called Isis, Osiris, and Horus. But the original Trinity was Aset, Asar, and Heru, based on the Book of the Dead. Now, I know there were probably even more ancient civilizations in Africa other than just the Egyptian, which I know was Nubia and Ethiopia. Of course, Nubia is currently underwater, I believe. So it's hard to find a lot of their material. But then Ethiopia, Egypt is considered the grandchild of Ethiopia. So this is good information. But now I'm going somewhere with this, okay? I'm just trying to prepare the pathway to make sure that what we're talking about is saying, let's look at the other side. Is it true or not? To me, it makes a lot more sense when I get a chance to look at the revisionist or the alternative information, the information that's not presented to us, because those who are presenting the information to us has an agenda, which we all do. We all have agendas. So me as the recipient, if I want to really profoundly understand whatever is presented to me, then I got to say, okay, what is the opposing view? You gave me the supporting view. What is the opposing view? And then I can come to a conclusion on my own. Based on the conclusion I've come to is that we did enslave the white race. We did enslave any other race that we came in contact with. We did brutalize them. We taught them as well, and we taught them civilization. And part of civilization was the brutal aspect as well. Just like civilization today, you have the United States government, Germany, China soon to be more than likely. There are brutal elements of all these great civilizations, all of them. Now, how did they fall? Easy. Mel Gibson did a movie called The Apocalypse. Mel Gibson movie Apocalypse. At the very beginning of the movie on that screen, it says something to the effect that all great civilizations deteriorate from within before they're externally annihilated.
Right.
Okay. And that rings true to me, because now he's showing, I think he's doing a movie. He did this movie on the Aztecs, the great and ancient Aztecs of the Americas or the South Americas, whatever. And he was showing the brutal nature of these Native Americans, these indigenous people, whatever, however you want to refer to them. He's showing the brutal element, the internal contradictions that they had, that they allowed to overwhelm them. And then when the Europeans came, now the Europeans are blamed for coming here with a gun, with a musket, a gun that shot one musket at a time, when a Native American or indigenous person could shoot off 10 arrows by the time that European tried to reload for another one musket shot. So the Native Americans were far more superior with their weaponry than these so-called people that were traveling here, Europeans or whatever you want to call them, traveling here to take over their land. I think it's an utter shame that the 300 million Native Americans, indigenous people, whatever, in this land here, allowed themselves to be taken over by this handful of so-called Europeans or whatever the case may be. The problem is they deteriorated from within first, and which allowed them to be more vulnerable externally. Now let me stop there. And Tony or either Jay, y'all want to say something?
Yeah, I have a quick question. It's a funny question, but it's basically a question that I'm asking for the sake of the audience. How come when I run into people who have this much deep information that you guys possess, they tend to not be Democrats?
It's called a reconstruction.
Let's deal with that. Let's deal with that. Okay.
Will on fire, so I'm gonna let him talk.
Because I've questioned that though too. I've questioned that because when I was in the Black Revolution, I mean, I went through the Nation of Islam for a while too, but my longest period was in the Black Revolution. Knowing, being introduced to Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, Geronimo Pratt, Johnny Spain, not Cleaver, but and others. Okay, Fred Hampton Jr., Deborah Johnson, his wife, or Fred Hampton Jr.'s mother, Deborah Johnson. So I've met a lot of these people in the past who are no longer in the Black Revolution. Okay, a lot of the Black Panthers left, and a lot of them left for reasons unbeknownst to us. But I have my suspicions, because when I did meet them, they didn't express outward disunity with what we were doing, but they sure as hell wasn't out there continuing this struggle like we were doing. Okay, but they were our elders. They had already had their struggle, so we didn't really question it much. And if we did question it, it would be in the form of presenting it as an excuse for their inactivity, I guess you would say. I'm gonna leave it there, because I know people will be wanting to pounce all over me if I'm saying Huey wasn't a revolutionary. Yes, Huey was a revolutionary, but Huey also got killed from a very mysterious means of he on drugs heavily later on in life after he got out of prison. And then he got shot early in the morning in the head in West Oakland, I'm sorry, around 4 or 5 in the morning over supposedly a drug deal. Okay, now we of course interpreted as, oh no, it was the FBI. So the FBI, the CIA, all these external forces always come in and destroy anything that we've built. But us, we don't accept responsibility of saying, well, listen, we deteriorated from within first, which allowed ourselves to be more vulnerable to the external forces. Okay, so the Democrat narrative, we got that in our communities. I mean, Democrat, Republican, y'all need to shut that mess up, okay? Because most of us don't even know the history of either one of those parties. Okay, and I really want to say that.
Going, right?
Yeah. And we really need to shut that up. But we as Black people, we're suckers for the Democratic Party. We were suckers for the Republican Party before that, when we shortly when we came out of slavery. Based on the alternative research that I've done, it's a concerted effort to keep Blacks and whites pitted against one another, hating one another in this country. Now, mind you, I said it's a concerted effort from, let's say, above. But I blame the victim. I'm the type that blames the victim, okay? If they put crack in your community, if they got an agenda to keep Black and white separate, then that means that blacks and whites are going after each other's throats, or they're putting drugs in our community and we're taking it. They can put the drugs in our community. We don't need to take it. They can create this narrative. They can create this narrative of Black versus white, hate white, whatever. But that's for their agenda. That's for especially the white left. The white left wants to always create a narrative that Black people and white people hate each other and we should have a revolution against one another. No. We should unite and have a revolution against a corrupt system that's breeding this type of behavior. That's where we should be united at. Okay. Now, historically, I see what the Democratic Party is doing today, and I hear a lot of people in the conservative side say, hey, we were Republicans at one time, and now we're Democrats, as though the Republicans were somewhat different than the current day Democrats. Those Republicans that we were connected to in slavery, or shortly after slavery, during the Reconstruction period, those were what you call the liberal whites then, giving handouts to the Blacks. So we have not changed. We just go to the party for the handouts. Not all of us, but a large segment of our people go and follow the handouts. And I think we've allowed ourselves to be bred like that in slavery. Just like when we enslaved them, they went through the same thing that we're going through now, of this whole you owe me, I'm a victim, this handout mentality. We are accepting of that. So if that article that I just read, now this is a so-called white nationalist newspaper. Well, we always call it white nationalist when it's conservative. Okay, it's not a white nationalist newspaper. If Black people can have an organization for Black power, then white people can have an organization for white power. I've read a lot of their material as I've read a lot of our material. And what I see is that both sides have a tendency to go at each other's throats, and it's fattening somebody else's pockets. Okay, there's a great book called The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin that shows that there's a certain segment of the people, and he says the Jews essentially are the ones that control the banking, and they benefit from both sides of any crisis. They fund each side of a crisis, and they benefit from each side of a crisis. So when the North went to war, the bankers were there funding both sides. When the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Vietnam, you name it, the Afghan war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, wherever, even this war, current war in Ukraine, that we have no business in. We have no business in. What's going on in Ukraine is the same thing that went on in Cuba in 1960, early 60s. And if the Russians would not have taken the missiles out of Cuba, we would have flattened Cuba. And now our hypocrisy is showing, because the same thing, when hands off, NATO was designed to keep Russia in check after World War II. Even though this U.S. government was infiltrated by tons of communists, okay, and the communists were dictating our policy, we gave Eastern Europe, a large part of Eastern Europe, to the Russians. And that was the strategy that they used against Germany. Okay, so nothing happens by accident in history. Okay, if we accept their narrative, then we will just sit up and say, so that's what happened in Ukraine. The Russians are these bad people and they're attacking Ukraine. But if you go back and study the Cuban Missile Crisis, you'll see that the same scenario played out there, but we negotiated our way out of that. The United States, we negotiated our way out of that. And if they wouldn't take them missiles out of there, we would have leveled Cuba. And we know that. But so what's going on in Ukraine? Russia told them, if you don't, you hands off of Ukraine. If you go into Ukraine, or you try to bring Ukraine into NATO, which is the organization that was created to keep Russia in check, and right after World War II, then I'm going to attack. And I'm going to, because Ukraine is part of Russia. You know, we don't have to go into the details of it, but I'm just saying that we don't need to be there. I'm not no Russian agent. I'm not colluding with the Russians or anything like that. I'm just trying to say to people, I've studied both sides of it, and my conclusion is that we don't need to be there. There's what's that here?
Saying that Jekyll Island, Preacher from Jekyll Island is a good book.
Oh, okay. Williams system playing on both sides. Okay, yeah. So these so-called Democrats of the day are the same Democrats that were called Republicans in the North at the time of the Civil War. So a lot of people, if you read some of the books, I read the Barnes Review. I'm gonna tell you now, I read the Barnes Review, and I read the American Free Press. We also listen to Tony Epoch. Epoch. Yeah. What are some of the other ones?
Zero Hedge.
We look at every Zero Hedge.
Epoch Times. Gateway Pundit. There's a couple of
Fox, CNN.
I do read Epoch Times. I also I look at Newsmax too.
Yeah, Newsmax. We look at Newsmax. Yeah.
Breitbart.
Yeah.
Breitbart.
So,
yep. Breitbart.
Yeah. So we're being fed through primarily CNN. Huh?
OAN.
Yeah, OAN. Okay, yeah. So if we're being fed through CNN, primarily CNN. I mean, Fox News is it's okay, but to me,
it's not CNN.
Yeah, it's not CNN. Put it that way, okay? But I'm not getting all my news from Fox either. But I definitely would prefer Fox News, the so-called what we call the racist channel. Everything that we don't like is racist. My goodness, right. Please, would y'all stop that, please? Okay, and ain't nobody. You talking about Trump racist? Ain't nobody more racist than Biden, okay? And the Democratic Party. Thank you.
If you don't vote for me, then you must not be black. You know what he said?
And then he supported the crime bill in 1994, and he spoke at Robert Byrd's funeral. I think the Grand Wizard of the so-called Ku Klux Klan.
Ku Klux Klan, right?
And he also spoke out that he would never want his children to go to school with blacks or something like that in the
jungle.
Huh?
In the jungle.
There you go. Yeah, something like that. So
he didn't want his kids in the jungle.
There you go. So please stop all that, okay? Just But the Democratic Party giving the handout, so that's why we're there. We're being paid off to go and regurgitate their narrative while it's killing us. It's killing us. It's like that cocoon and that butterfly. It's a bug or something flying. That cocoon And that butterfly example that Jay gave is what the Democratic Party is doing. Essentially, we're allowing them. I'm sorry, not that they're doing that to us. We're allowing them to do that to us. We're allowing them to cripple us, even with their programs. So, somebody said put up black conservative. Hashtag black conservative.
That's my lady.
Oh, okay. Okay. So if that article that I gave to you earlier today, that gave a different narrative of what we assumed that the Republican Party was about at the time of Reconstruction. That's why most blacks were Republican. So in that article, it talks about a coup in North Carolina or either South Carolina.
South Carolina.
I forget which one. North Carolina. Okay.
South Carolina.
Wilmington.
South Carolina.
I know, but Wilmington, South Carolina, or Wilmington, North Carolina. Okay, wherever it was at. You got the article, Jay. I sent it to you.
Yeah,
But
I'm
anyway,
you want me to bring that up?
yeah, there you go. In the Carolina coup, insurrection in Tar Heel State. Now I said, well, let me read this article.
North Carolina.
If you go down further into the article, it'll tell you.
North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, it's the Carolina coup, but I hope people can get a chance to read that. And of course, we'll probably say it's racist and all like that. So, but I want to read the net racist stuff. I want to do just like Marcus Garvey did with the UNIA, who met with the Ku Klux Klan on many different occasions, not on just one, on many different occasions, because the Ku Klux Klan was a organization preserving white rights, and the UNIA was an organization preserving black rights. So why not? Let's come together and let's work together.
So,
Okay.
guys, where do we want to tag the text at? Do you have it all? Anything on hand?
Can you put the link? Can you put the link of the article just in the chat or something so people can have access to it?
Well, what they're gonna have to do is shoot me an inbox, because this is a PDF. It is not an internet link.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's on the phone that it's not on this phone here. It's on my other phone, the Carolina coup. So
And by the way, you were speaking of Huey P. Newton. I want to suggest everyone to pick up his book called Revolutionary Suicide.
Okay, you pick up his book, Revolutionary Suicide, and then get the Who Movement's book on Huey Newton, because we dealt with him in the last days of his life.
Okay.
And where he made the quote, you no longer have the Black Panther newspaper, but you have the Burning Spear newspaper. You no longer have the Black Panther Party, but you have the African People's Socialist Party.
Okay.
So, matter of fact, I come from
Can you expound on this gentleman right here?
Can
you expound on this guy right here?
He's one of the main players in the. Okay, so the article. Let me try to sum up the article. Now, Jay, what kind of time frame are we dealing with here?
No, we're good. We're good. I can cut it out at any point.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you guys want to share, feel free.
Okay, all right. Well, let me just throw a summation in there first, and then Tony, if you got the article in front of you, you can probably read.
No, I actually don't. I only have one phone, Will. I don't have two.
Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, you're on your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, to sum the article up, what it's telling us is that the Democratic Party of today, the party of the liberal whites, it's not a party for the black folks. It's a party for liberal whites who use black people to for their own benefit. Okay. And we allow them to use us for their own benefit because they give us a few crumbs, and then we're happy with that. So what the Democratic Party is doing current day is what the Republican Party did for slavery. Okay, during the Civil War and shortly after the Civil War. The Civil War wasn't about slavery. Okay, let me make sure people are clear on that. It was not about slavery. Okay, and if you don't believe me, take a look at some of the alternative information. One being The Creature from Jekyll Island, written by G. Edward Griffin. Talks about money. You follow the money and you'll be closer to the truth. Okay. The Emancipation Proclamation was not introduced till later on in the war. Okay. And one of the reasons was that Lincoln saw that there was a lot of black people fighting on the side of the Confederacy. Now we can, please provide PDF. Oh, Jay. Okay.
Yep.
I was reading that.
I got you for that.
Okay, where was that? Now I was saying,
so
what was that?
The Emancipation was written.
Okay, the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah, so that was introduced later on. The initial war with the division of the South and the North and the South, because the South had the right to secede from the Union. That was the anti-federalists were all about, was the states' rights. Okay, so the South wanted to secede from the Union because the South was the current day Republican Party, and I don't even know if I should say current day Republican Party or not, because most of them are rhinos, Republican name only, and I'm just as dissatisfied with them as I am with the Dixiecrats or the Democrats. I'm sorry, Democrats. So I want to make sure you put on the record right now, I'm not really in total support of either party, because I see the contradictions even within the Republican Party. But the Republican Party are now the so-called conservatives, where the Democrats were the conservatives at that time, and they were dissatisfied with what was going on with the relationship of the North and the South. Now there's a book by Tony, the book that I got from you by Seabrook, Lochlain Seabrook, Lochlain. Lochlain Seabrook is his last name, and I could be saying that wrong. I read so much material, I kind of get confused on some of the stuff I read. But his book is Tony initially bought the book, and he was dissatisfied with it to a certain degree. And so I took over the book and read the entire book, and I said, no, Tony, we better revisit this book because it makes a lot of sense. But this gentleman was encouraged by a black man whose parents fought in the Confederacy. So this black man went to Lochlain Seabrook, and I can't think of the black man's name, but if you get the book, you can read it for yourself and see how good it is. So the black man goes to Lochlain Seabrook and says, have you ever written about blacks in the Civil War? Especially the Confederates, and for the Confederacy, the blacks that fought for the Confederacy. And so the guy he started a book, but he said he didn't think there'd be too much interest in it. So the black guy, when he approached this guy, reinvigorated this guy's ambition to write the book. So he finished the book, and the black guy contributed because a lot of his ancestors fought in the Confederacy. Now, when I was a black revolutionary, I would have discarded all that nonsense. Totally discarded any of that. That would be pure nonsense to me, because they were the blacks who fought in the Civil War. They were forced to by the slave masters, but actually a lot of them weren't. And that's what that kind of like devastated me, because it went against the narrative, but that I had been spoon fed, that I didn't do any research on. So now that I've done research on it, it makes more sense. Why did these blacks fight in the Confederacy? There were more blacks fighting in the Confederacy than were fighting in the Union, because the blacks up north looked at the whites just as even more hypocritical than the blacks in the South looked at their so-called servant masters, or what you may want to call slave owners. Okay. So in this article, it talks about after the Civil War concluded and Reconstruction was initiated. Now, Reconstruction was essentially giving rights to the blacks in the South and disregarding rights to the whites in the South, especially the Confederate soldiers. So it took away a lot of their rights and gave it to these blacks in the South. So these liberal whites up north, who made you think, or the narrative that they've written, to the victor go the spoils, right? So whoever wins the war gets to write the story. So the North supposedly won the war. So the books that we read right now are currently what they say about how good the North was and how bad the South was. Has anybody on this phone or on this call read any of the stories from the Confederates of the South? Bedford, Forrest Bedford, Jefferson Davis. Have we read any story from the South in their perspective of the Civil War? Probably not. Probably nobody on this call. But that's what I want to do. I want to venture out and say, me and Tony, we do that. We say, let's go read the opposite side. So even we've done that with Hitler as well.
Now, Will, let me say this too before you continue.
Okay,
so
no, you go ahead.
A lot of you said a lot of blacks fought in the war from the South.
In the Confederacy.
Right. And you were saying that they weren't forced, they wanted to.
A lot of them, right. A
I
lot of
wonder
them,
why
Tony,
a
more
lot
than
of
you
them.
would believe.
So here's the critical thinking part of it. I wonder why a lot of them wanted to fight, because as we touched on a little earlier, there were a lot of prominent black slave owners in the South as well, who were
Yeah.
benefiting from a
Slavery.
lot of the stuff. So
Yeah.
this idea or this notion to think that slavery was just all about white people and white colonialism is it's not true. Blacks had skin in the game too. You
Lots of
know,
skin. Yeah.
in South Carolina, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, I believe. You know, all in the southern states, there were a lot of black slave owners. I think one slave owner, he owned up to 200 slaves.
Anthony Johnson.
No, not Anthony
Oh, you got
Johnson.
another one.
It was one guy, Debuki, Debuli or something like that. I forget, Antoine Debuli or something like that. I forget his name, but he owned a lot of slaves, and then he became a politician, a very prominent politician, but he was black. So just to touch on something that I don't know, maybe we overlooked earlier. A lot of black people had skin in the game, and they wanted to fight in this war to preserve what was going their way of life.
Right.
So I'll let you have it back.
And they had the right to secede, and they had the right to want to preserve their way of life. But of course, the Northerners who wrote the history books said that the Southerners were upholding slavery. No, the Southerners were the first abolitionists started in the South, and it started in the early 1600s. The South did not want this slavery that the North imposed on them. The ships that went to get the slaves from Africa were all Northern ships, and they flew under not the Confederate flag, they flew under the American flag. Now, let me just say, get the book, okay? Lachlan Seabrook, and it's called what's the title, Tony?
Everything that you taught about the Civil War is wrong. Or everything that you know about the Civil War was wrong. Ask a Southerner or something like that.
Okay, so I thought it was something pertaining to black people. Everything you knew about slavery, was it slavery or Civil War?
So when you mentioned slavery,
I think it was slavery. Yeah, I think everything you know about slavery is wrong. Ask a Southerner.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned about the slaves coming here, they didn't have Confederate flags, they had American flags.
Right.
That's
the North flag, the Union flag.
The North, right. So that kind of goes in line with Jamestown, Virginia.
Yes, it does. But wait a minute, Virginia's in the South though.
Virginia,
wait a minute, Jay.
Are you speaking of Mason-Dixie line South?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I'm glad you said that. There you go. That's a good point. But you can expound on that in just a minute. Yeah, most of the slaves were held in New England and then New York. Those were the two big slave-holding ports. All the slaves that were brought to America landed either New York or New England.
Right.
Okay,
and the one guy that I mentioned that had a lot of slaves, he started out with 7 and he traveled up to Virginia to purchase more. So he traveled all the way from the South up to Virginia. I think in Louisiana, he traveled all the way from Louisiana up to the Virginias
to
purchase more slaves.
Now, Jay said Dixie line. Can you expound on that right quick, Jay? The Dixie line?
The Mason-Dixon line, according to the Mason-Dixie line, Washington, D.C. is considered the South. So when we're speaking of Northern, what is the natural boundary to support the North and the South? Are we speaking of now you mentioned New York, which is clearly the North, and that being amongst the biggest, that still proves that the North had a lot of slaves.
Yeah, they are the ones that had more slaves. The slaves came through those ports in New England, then New York.
Right, because the boat trips come from Africa, down from Florida, and it comes up the Atlantic, right? So I was wondering. So when you said the slave were ported in at the North, I automatically started thinking about Jamestown. But then again, I started thinking, is Jamestown, Virginia, considered the South because it's below the Mason-Dixon line? Or, I was trying to figure out what is the natural boundary that separates the North and the South of the country.
Hey
Yeah, that
James,
made
so real quick, I think Willette Seward says April Ellison. Yeah, I think the guy's name was April. He had a different first name, but that was one of the the black slave owners. That was just one of them.
right.
Um,
Good job, Willette. Now remember that Anthony Johnson came in the early 1600s, like we had said at the very beginning, and he had a lot of slaves himself. He's the one that he played a key role in sustaining the whole slavery institution in America. A black man, Anthony Johnson, came from Western or Central Africa. I can't hate that, but it's in the book. It's in the book, and I encourage people to go look at the book. Okay. It's not beyond us. It's not below us. We can go and read. Let's see. I like to read both sides of the situation. Okay, so take a look at that book and see what the Southern blacks and whites had to say about the North and slavery. The South did not want, but we're told that the South were the key slaveholders, and we're not. And the Jewish question never comes up. The Jewish question has
Thank
to
you
be
for bringing that up now,
yeah.
Will, because I was just getting ready to say. So let's follow the money now.
Yeah. And the Jewish question, anytime you talk about the Jews, you're automatically anti-Semite. Anytime you talk about the black thing, oh, you're racist. So let's not tiptoe around this whole group, the groups of people that want to play victim all the damn time. Okay. So the Jews played a key role in slavery. Okay. And they were the big, read the book by the Nation of Islam, a black organization. What the secret relationship between blacks and Jews. It's
Right.
got 2 volumes, and it's talking about the Jews being the primary and largest slaveholders in the South and the North. Okay, and the North. Let's not forget the North. So anyway, so we're talking about this.
Is that by Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or you just want to?
That's by Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam. I
Farrakhan.
guess Farrakhan. Yeah, Farrakhan.
Was it Farrakhan?
Yes.
I know Nation of Islam, but was it Farrakhan? Was it Elijah Muhammad?
No, I
That
don't
wrote the
think it
book?
was Elijah
No,
Muhammad.
no,
I
it
think
wasn't Elijah Muhammad. It was
Farrakhan.
Farrakhan.
Okay,
Who was the author?
that's what I was
Is it
wondering.
just
Who was
No,
the
it wasn't
author?
Elijah Muhammad. Just because Elijah Muhammad before,
Somebody in
yeah.
the chat, if you could look that up real quick.
Okay.
I got both volumes. I've read both volumes as well. But anyway, so that's a great piece, and of course the Jews. That's why the Jews label him an anti-Semite. So anybody that questions anything that the Jews did, they're automatically branded an anti-Semite. And I say, look, we have the right to question anything, and you should question anything. And go out and read the information that the suppressed and alternative information and the revisionist information is the information I want to see. I don't need the information that they spoon feed me because that's supporting their narrative. Of course, I'm going to read the information that they're presenting me. It's going to help me to understand the suppressed and revisionist information that they don't want us to see. Okay. And so this article here and a lot of the books that I've already talked about are revisionist information. It's alternative information. And there is an element of truth in this alternative information that can help benefit us to stop playing the damn victim all the time and take responsibility for our actions. If we take control of it, because the only thing we can change is us. We can't change anybody else. We're trying to change other people. When the elephant in my house, in my room, and I'm trying to get a rabbit out of somebody else's house, why not get the elephant out of my room and I'll probably eliminate 80 to 90% of my problems right then and there. And understand that I am the ultimate cause of my contradictions. So if I'm the ultimate cause of my contradictions, I'm ultimately responsible for getting rid of those contradictions. And the best way to get rid of those contradictions is to be able to look at things in a broader view. To say, okay, you tell me that slavery happened, I'm going to read books that say slavery didn't happen. You're going to tell me that the Holocaust happened, I'm going to read books that the Holocaust didn't happen. You're going to tell me that we didn't enslave people, I'm going to read books that we did enslave people. I'm going to read the opposite narrative of anything, especially that this system presents me with. Anything. Right. So when they tell me, oh, Reconstruction was good for blacks, I want to see what Reconstruction, how it was bad for blacks. And so that article that Jay just had up, the Carolina coup, when I read it, it made a lot more sense to the narrative that I was presented with. Why? Because I'm living in current day. And right now, current day, I don't believe anything that the media tells me right now. I examine everything from COVID, from the election, from January 6th,
Monkeypox.
to what's going on, monkeypox. Yeah, Jay, you was calling me about the monkeypox today. You made a prediction on that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you say it right quick what you told me today?
Well, my lady here is watching. I predicted to her a year ago. I said just about every every just about every election come up, they're gonna come up with some sort of pandemic or epidemic. And I said, be aware of the monkeypox. I said that's gonna be the next COVID that they're gonna use before the election because they want to cheat. And here we are. They talking about, they promote. I won't even say they're talking about it. They're marketing monkeypox.
Marketing it.
Hey, the WHO has already listed it as an international pandemic emergency. I'm sorry.
Is that right?
Yeah, a couple days ago, I think last week, the WHO came out and said that, hey, this is an international emergency. So it's already there.
So my lady Quintina Lee watching, you can let everybody, you can pretty much confirm, and she'll put it in the comments that I did mention that to her a year ago.
Right.
And I said it on a couple of my podcasts. I just don't know which ones I mentioned it on. But I told them, I said they're going to come up with another pandemic right before the midterm elections because they getting ready to get wiped out this election.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you.
They
really are.
It's going to be a hard red wave.
And if you don't believe
this country,
and if they don't believe you about the monkeypox right now, go read the book "The Truth About Anthony Fauci" by Robert Kennedy Jr., which the left writes off as some quack or some nutcase. But even before I read his book, I read the history of vaccines. And the history of vaccines, which most of us don't read because we're going to run out there and get that shot. I didn't get the shot. I won't get the shot. Okay, I won't get the flu shot because that's what essentially it is. It's the flu. Okay, nobody even gets the flu anymore. They just get COVID.
She just came up and said, I just did.
Did what?
That I predicted this monkeypox. And look what else she just said.
I'm tired of you being right. But you know what? But Quintina, it's really simple because this is nothing new. What's going on right now is what's going on historically. I mean, this is going on since the beginning of media's existence. Okay, if you go back and look at the Revolutionary War, you got to give totally different narrative. The forefathers of this country were adamantly opposed to slavery, wanted to get rid of that institution shortly after the American Revolution. But the northern states didn't want to get rid of it. The southern states was ready to get rid of it altogether after the American Revolution, not after the Civil War. After the American Revolution, they were ready to get rid of it. But of course, the northerners who won the war gets the right to the spoil go to victor, to the victor go to spoils. So they get to write their history. So what I want to do now is I want to go read it from the loser's perspective. Just like when you say anything, with anything, okay? Goodness gracious. I mean, sometimes I sit up here and I say, wow, we really having this discussion? We were really having this discussion about examining both sides of any issue. That's the only way you're going to get a truer narrative. And you don't never sit up and accept what you're, I ain't going to say your enemy, but if I present something to you, like right now on this phone, on this call, everything I'm saying to you is a lie. That's why I'm giving you material to go read and go research, and then come back and say, and we can talk about it further. You can debate. You can say, hey, that's nonsense. Your translation is garbage. Whatever. We have the right to do that, even though this country, this communist country that we live in, that we think is capitalist. Okay, it's been a communist country ever since the central bank was created in 1913. Okay. The Communist Manifesto's plank was a graduated income tax and establishment of the central bank. And the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 and 10, outlaws the existence of a private banking system. Congress has the right to coin money and regulate the value thereof, not a secret cabal of bankers outside of this country. Okay? And the Federal Reserve banking system is just that. But yet and still, we accept it, we participate in it, so we're just as guilty as the perpetrators. We are just as guilty because of our participation. So we talk about the North and the South in the Civil War. The North was catering to the blacks, but the North, Lincoln had no interest in freeing slaves unless they would go back, they're going to go back to Africa. He was part of what you call the ACS, the American Colonization Society. He was in there before he became president, and he supported them while he was president. Okay, whether it was directly or indirectly, he still supported the American Colonization Society. But you have to do some reading on your own. I mean, I'm just sharing bits and pieces of the book, but it's all giving you the picture of, look here, the media is distorted then, just like it's distorted now. But there are ways to get the alternative information to say, okay, what were other people saying? What was the ones that, what were the defeated saying? Okay, because they're going to have a different narrative than the victors. But of course, we can read both sides, and then we can kind of pick and shoot, pick from each side. And what I found myself doing is picking more from the side of the ones who lost, because their stories seem much more relevant. So in the South, at the end of Reconstruction, the North gave the rights to the blacks and took the rights away from the whites, creating animosity. Because in the South, blacks and whites coexisted much more fairly, I guess you would say, than what happened in the North. The blacks worked together. They had a relationship. And this thing, there wasn't a slavery in the South that was considered servitude. Okay, that's why you had so many free blacks, and you had so many blacks that had their own slaves in the South. Okay, when Reconstruction happened, it gave rise to a thing called the Reconstruction KKK. Not your Ku Klux Klan of today that have been infiltrated, and all they show you is narratives of black people being hung by white people. Black people being hung by white people. But what it shows you, the Reconstruction KKK, which there was an organization out of Indiana and other organizations around the country of Ku Klux Klan that had more black members than white members, because they were working to stabilize the community that existed antebellum. That's before the Civil War.
Hey, Will, let me go ahead and say this real quick, since we're talking about it. For the listening audience, this book right here, Ku Klux Klan, Its Origin. And it's written by, I don't know if you can see this guy.
Julius Lester. He's a black man.
Yeah. So it talks about how, and there's a passage in there where it talks about how after the Civil War, what you were referring to earlier, Will, about how black people were getting, or white people were getting their rights taken away from them during Reconstruction. And so white people formed this group to, this supremacist group, or what we will call supremacist group, to just have to keep their rights intact. So it talks about it here in this book.
I gotta get that then.
Yeah, so that's a good book.
And that's written by a black man, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a white man. That's written by a black man there.
And it talks about, it does talk about black people being a part of the organization.
Yes.
Wow.
So
Ku Klux Klan origin.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, by Julius Lester. So coming up out of slavery, now this is all in Lachlan Seabrook's book, okay? And I've kind of pieced stuff together because I've always wondered, why did Marcus Garvey meet with the Ku Klux Klan? Why would essentially a guy of this revolutionary character, this black revolutionary character, meet with the Ku Klux Klan? And after reading their book and then books on the Ku Klux Klan, I can see why. Because these whites were, like Tony was saying, these whites were trying to preserve their rights because they were being taken away under Reconstruction. Who would sit around and let their rights be taken away? Not even we, not even us. We wouldn't do it either. That's why I kind of challenged the whole narrative of slavery as well.
So were their rights being taken away by liberals?
Yeah.
The northern.
Well, back then it was what'd you call it, Will? When it was switched around.
Yeah. So it was reversed. So those white liberals in the North, those were the current day Democrats. They were working on the same wavelength. So when they say, oh, blacks used to be Republicans, yeah, that's part of the story. Yes, blacks did used to be Republicans, but the blacks that were Republicans were with the Republicans because those blacks were following this this handout mentality, this playing the victim role mentality. And they cater right to it. The white left caters to this victim role mentality. I would definitely side. I'm not gonna say I don't like to put myself in any category, but I definitely would, if you look at all of my credentials, I probably would fit in more of the conservative bracket than what you call the white racist than this liberal leftist bracket, which I spent damn near 30 years in.
Right.
Okay. And I spent there. Most people ain't done no practical work, ain't been in no revolutionary organization doing work. They've just been armchair revolutionaries, just theoretical theory. And theory always sounds good. Like what Mike Tyson say? Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the face. And then your plan goes out the window. So it's easy to sit up and be theoretical about everything. Theory is great. It's wonderful. Me and Tony dealt with the UCC. The UCC theoretically is great. But then when they came and punched us in our mouths, the majority of the people that practiced was out there spouting all the great stuff about the UCC and the UCC connection and the advantages it had. All that went out the window. When they were facing time in jail, I was one of them, facing 50 years in jail for practicing UCC, discharging debt and things like that. And people could say, oh, well, you're doing it the wrong way. Okay, whatever the case may be, it was theory. And when I put it to practice, I said, oh, I better back off because this practical application is not effective, or I don't know how to administer it. So I had to back off, and the majority of the people have backed off of the UCC. Okay, I guarantee you. So in the South, these Republicans were the current day Democrats. They gave these blacks rights, and what happened? The whites, it took them 10 years. And I think the reason why I'm saying that now is because the same thing's happening today. We're going through Reconstruction right now, current today. They're taking a lot of rights.
Let me stop you right there real quick, Will. You say we're going through that today. And if you look around, for the listening audience, if you look around, what's happening with the borders? People from all over the world are coming in through these borders. When you talk about Reconstruction, and what are they doing with these people? They shipping them all over the country. They're giving them voting rights. You don't even have to be a citizen no more. You're getting $400,000. You're getting voting rights. I mean, you're getting it all. So at some point, we should be angry right now that our rights are being taken away from us.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Tony, because I was telling my lady, Quintina, I said, they are flooding the borders. They are going to be made to be the new Negroes. Because if you look at, a lot of us are waking up. We're not at the alarming rate that I would hope, that I would like, but we are waking up. And they know that they are really destroying this country. So it's going to be a lot of people that's going to be voting against them this midterm. So they bring these people here, flood the borders, and then put them on airplanes, flying them into New York 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when the airports are closed. And then want to give them voting rights because they know they're not going to have the votes to stay in office this midterm. And now, I mean, now you guys correct me if I'm wrong. If I said anything that wasn't correct, please. I mean, I'm here to learn just like my audience is, but if I didn't get something right before what I just said, please correct me on that.
I find no fault with this statement.
And I'm just, I would be surprised with these black folks to come out and say, oh no, y'all just being racist. Y'all saying that these people coming across the border don't need our help. Oh, well, if it's supposed to be such a bad country like the left says it is, why are they running here in the first place? Why are you coming here? And then now, for me, from a revolution, let me play devil's advocate for a minute, because I come from the Black Revolution. We would say, oh, well, the United States government has led coups and sent the CIA and other clandestine organizations over to disrupt their governments. That's why they're coming here. So, but in the past, everybody has to come here legally. Okay, we received 4,000 women. Read that, Jay, could you?
We received 4,000 migrants here in D.C. and Mayor Bowser is asking for federal help in the National Guard.
Yeah. So, but they're what they call, what's that city called? What kind of city they call? They're called
D.C.
Yeah, they sanctity city. What they call Chicago?
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary cities. Yeah. If you're sanctuary city, then be a sanctuary city. You didn't say that about the National Guard when they invaded Texas and Arizona. You didn't say nothing about no National Guard then. But you talked. You said they were racist when they wanted to build a wall. The wall was being built so people could force people to come in here legally. That's all. We're not saying people can't come, but just come legally. And so because they're taking away our rights when they're coming over here, but yet still we sitting up here with these white left. And even the rhinos, the Republicans name only, and the Democrats, and we're talking using their narrative, saying, "Hey, these people coming in, and it's racist for us to turn them away." No, it's not. Let's just
Right.
make sure they come in legally.
And
Yes.
I'm glad, and that's exactly what. But they switched that, and they clip out sound bites to support a narrative to make it seem like that he was just calling people thugs and criminals and all that kind of stuff. But a good point
Buying
is
citizens.
right.
Yeah,
But they
that's a
buying
good
citizens.
point. That Kiki Washington just just made a profound statement. She said they're buying citizens.
to
What were
vote.
they doing? What were they doing back then during slavery, with so-called slavery time?
Yeah, and
They were going
Reconstruction.
up there to buy. They were going up there to buy help,
Mhm.
citizens.
That is correct. Come ye all. Yeah, they talk about abortion being a sanctuary city and about abortions. Yeah, because I mean, they ain't taking away no abortion rights. Each state should be able to dictate its own policies. Okay, in a communist government, which people I'd never been to a communist country. All I did was work in a communist organization for over 20 something years. Okay, so we lived a life of communism, of socialism. Okay, with the African People's Socialist Party. So I lived that life, and so until you go to a communist country, don't complain about this country. But I'm gonna tell you right now, this country has a lot of the characteristics of a communist country because we have been invaded by communists. Okay,
Right.
and there are people that were running for office, AOC, the Squad. All these people are displaying communistic strategies. Okay, and if you don't believe me, read The Creature from Jekyll Island. Like I said, once again, I'm gonna have to keep going back to these books. That is one of the most profound books. It talks about slavery, the Civil War, the American Revolution, everything from a monetary perspective. And if you follow the money, that's where you're going to come closer to the truth. The Civil War was not about slavery. Okay,
And
so make sure you're clear.
let me add to this, William, and either you guys can correct me. Take a look at the characteristics of a slave plantation.
Go ahead.
Jot them down, and then take a look at the characteristics of a Democratic ran city, and you will clearly see that a Democratic ran city is the closest to a mirror of a slave plantation.
Yep, and that's true. And that's what, and even going back to that Reconstruction, that's what Reconstruction was doing, was giving handouts to the blacks, taking away from the whites, creating animosity between the two races. Okay. And when they did that, then the whites created this thing called the Reconstruction KKK, not the KKK, the Reconstruction KKK. And what it was about was blacks and whites were trying to restore those white citizens of their rights because we didn't want the animosity with the whites. The government was more of our problem. This super huge government that the founding forefathers of this country were against. They were not against this conglomerate government. Okay, that's specifics of a communist government. The government ever so strong in controlling everything. We wanted a limited government, and we wanted a republic form of government. Benjamin Franklin said, "You have a Republican form of government." He said democratic government. He said a Republican form of government if you can keep it. Of course, we didn't keep it. We've allowed ourselves to evolve into subtle stages of communism by creating a graduated income tax, a central bank, have somebody, there's a certain group that controls the media. Right now, we can see that. You've seen how
Everything
they crushed
you
all the
own
conservatives.
belongs to the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we brought this on ourselves. Go ahead.
I'm glad that you're exactly where you are, because when you spoke of that just now, what came to my mind, and I want you guys, and I know you already know about it, I want you guys to expound a little bit on burning books.
Burning books? Burning books, you saying?
Yeah.
All right. Tony, you want to say something on it first, or you want me?
No, when you're talking about when you burn a book, when you burn information, Jay, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So
because my question was going to come up is what strategies that you guys know of that any organization or any person have right now that can get a lot of people to see what's really going on, and how we can avoid them to burn the information.
Well,
Okay.
I think one of the things that our ancestors used to do was they used to tell our history, our story. They used to tell it in stories. You see, they
Orally
used to
though.
tell our history, yeah, orally. Thank you, Will. They used to say it orally. And then what would happen, it was just like a song, like how you would say patty cake, or some London bridges or something. It was a story, and it was passed down through tradition. But there was a study done, and I think it was by some Russian scientists, social science engineers. They discovered that it only takes 1 to 2 generations to forget who you are and where you came from. Just 1 or 2 generations. So you can write a book all day long, and like Will said, to the victor goes the spoils. So they get to write the book. And what happens is they change the narrative, they change the whole outcome in the book because the generations have forgotten who they are as a people. So I think one of the way, and it's going to be very hard now because you've forgotten. We're so behind the 8 ball that we have to go dig out everything, just like Will and I do. We have to go dig out and research everything, and keep our eyes open and ears open and just look at both sides and piece it together and then bring it into the current state of affairs and say, what, this sounds logical, and a whole hell of a lot of critical thinking, because it's hard right now. It's hard. So that was one of the ways that we used to do it, and I think that's what's going to happen, or needs to happen, is that we need to get back to storytelling.
Now, because when the Bolsheviks came to power in Russia, and when, of course, when the German Socialist Party came together as well, there were book burnings that happened at that time, and those are the books that I want. The books that historically, any books that were burned, any documents that were burned, any documents that were suppressed historically, that's what I want to see. I want to see what that is. I want to see the Dead Sea Scrolls that exposes the Bible, that are held in the basements of the Vatican right now, locked up. The Dead Sea Scrolls gives you a totally different narrative on the Bible. I want to see it. Well, of course, your general pastors out there will say, no, that's forbidden information. You don't need to see it. No, I need to see it. You don't tell me what I need to see it. I'll make that determination, not you. I want to see all the suppressed and burned information in the past. I don't know if that's answering your question or not, Jay, but that's my position on the banned books or the books that was burned. Those are the books that I want. And those are books that me and Tony have got a lot of those books. And we found valuable information in it. We see why they wanted to burn.
Have you guys developed a book club?
We have off and on, nothing real intense because it's hard to find good help out here, man. And when I say that, I mean it's hard to find people that's on your level.
Right.
Kiki says a lot of these stories are written by Freemasons anyway. We must be careful of their stories. I want to be careful of the media right now. I want to be careful of the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post. That's what I want to be careful of. I'm going to read those books, the Freemasons, because I got a mind of my own. I can read anything that's not from the mainstream media, because I know what the mainstream media's agenda is about. So I read a lot of Freemason and Illuminati. I also read a lot of Jewish literature, the Talmud, and books like that they don't want you to read, where they talk about Jesus should burn forever in hell, and him and Mary's a whore, and that Jesus should burn in hell. This is in the book of the Jews, the Talmud. That's the book. I got that book as well. So people say, oh, be careful. No, knowledge is key. Knowledge is key. All knowledge is key. I can make a determination on what is good and what is bad. And what I found is what's been spoon-fed to me is much more damaging than the books that are burned and kept out of the loop.
Now,
that's
Jay,
what's damaging to me.
Jay, I might get in trouble for this one, but I'm gonna bring this book up.
You are.
The audience. But someone just made a good statement about Freemasons are writing a lot of this stuff, but I want, like Will said, I want to read the stuff, and so I've been holding on to this book for a lot of years. This book right here, and it's a very interesting book. In Protocol number 9, it talks about how they will, teach us things that we know to be not true, but they'll teach them to us as if, it's the bee's knees, so, but this is their plan. This has been their plan since 250 years ago.
Came
They
from the
had this plan.
Egyptians.
No.
Who was the
This
author?
protocol,
Victor
was
Marsden.
to learn Elders of Zion.
Yeah, Victor Marsden. He was a British correspondent or English correspondent to Russia at the time, and he found this. Victor Marsden.
Right.
Now most people write it off.
But the guy who what's his name? Ford, Henry Ford.
Oh yeah.
I think he went on an expedition and he found his book, and they were gonna go ahead and print it, and then I think a few of his friends they kind of backed out.
Henry Ford reprinted it in the Dearborn Independent. That was Henry Ford's paper. Henry Ford, the senior, he wrote that book. He wrote the Protocol to Learn the Elders of Zion. He reprinted it in the Dearborn Independent. That was his newspaper that he had in this country. That's why the so-called Jewish state came down on him pretty hard. The same one, the Jewish state that created the Freemasons and the Illuminati, that forbid you to mention the Jewish control of it. So they talk about Freemasons and Illuminati, but they never talk about the Jewish question. The Jews are the one that wrote the Protocol to Learn the Elders of Zion, which they got from the strategies of the ancient Egyptians, because the ancient Egyptians practiced the same thing. So I want to make sure people are clear on that. We're not just trying to pick on no Jews. We had just as much to do with the Protocol to Learn the Elders of Zion as Victor Marsden did when he reprinted it. He reprinted it, and they tried to forbid him from reprinting that book. But it talks about the strategies of taking over the world. And if you think you want to write it off as fiction, look at society right now and see if most of those protocols aren't being implemented right now.
Right. And like I said earlier, I think in protocol number 9, it talks about how they will miseducate you, deliberately miseducate you. So you will be an educated dummy out here going to some of the best college, or what we think is some of the best colleges, and have zero common sense and zero practicality. Everything is theory. And if you notice, by the way, everything right now, what we do is theory. Even what's his name? Jay, what's the guy's name? Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein was not a real scientist. Albert Einstein had a bunch of theories.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? A person, and he was once asked in an interview who was the smartest person that he knew, and he said, "I don't know. You need to ask Nikola Tesla." Nikola Tesla was a true scientist. You see what I'm saying? Albert Einstein was just a theoretician. Did I just make up a word, theoretician?
No, theoretician. Theoretician is word.
Is that correct?
I don't know. It just rolled off the tongue. Whatever. So,
theoretician.
But Albert Einstein really didn't have anything, you know what I'm saying? You talk about string theory, or when you talk about all these different universes. Meanwhile, Nikola Tesla was out here making it really happen. So everything that we learn, is based on theory. But and that's
right. What's Nikola's last name?
Tesla.
Tesla. Tesla.
Yeah, Jay smiling. Jay knew that. Jay just wanted to say it again. Hey, let me just say, I like to look at the chats. I try to read everything in the chat. The person put the 13th tribe. I read that book too, the 13th tribe, because that's going to show you the distinction between the Ashkenazim and who they're written by. I got read so many books, I keep forgetting, but LaShawn put in the 13th tribe. The 13th tribe will show you, and that's in the score, Tony, as well. The 13th tribe, that's going to show you the distinction between the Ashkenazi Jew and the Sephardic Jew, okay? So the Ashkenazi Jews are the ones that participated in the Bolshevik Revolution and tried to control the world with communism, with all their agents throughout the world. And even the bankers, most of those bankers on Wall Street were handpicked by the Rothschilds to run the banking system. So you talk about your peons like J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller. Those are just peons compared to the Rothschild, Jacob Schiff, and the Warburgs. Okay, this bug is. I don't want to kill him.
I had a little one flying around here too, like a little small moth.
The 13th Tribe. Who wrote that book? Look in there, LaShawn. Find out who the author of that book. I've
I
got the
think
book.
Goldman Sachs is in that too.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the ones like black people, we're associated with sports and entertainment. Well, the Jews are associated with banking. Okay, let's not just wipe that off the agenda. Okay, and when he who controls the money cares not who writes the laws. Okay, that's what Rothschild said. Give me
Rothschild.
Right.
control.
Yep.
Give me control of a nation's economy, and I
Yep.
care not who writes its laws. And if that's part of the protocols, tell me that that's not coming to fruition right now in this very country. And that's what Putin is trying to tell this country, because he knows what they did with the Bolshevik Revolution when they came to power in Russia in 1917, where they killed 65 million Orthodox Christians. 65 million, not 6 million. 65 million Orthodox Christians were killed at the hands of the Bolshevik Revolution, which was led by Karl Marx, Lenin, Trotsky, and well, not Karl Marx. He's the one who wrote the theory, but Trotsky, Lenin, and others carried it out. Okay, which either they were fully Jewish or partially Jewish. Okay, and I'm not trying to pick on the Jews. I'm just saying, listen, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, the thing is, we got so much information. We're gonna have to do 2 more of these. Let me tell you what. We're gonna have to do one on Hitler, and we're gonna have to come back and do one on Agenda 21.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do
People
that.
don't
Let's
know
do
about
it.
Agenda 21.
Right. And we're not trying to say we know it all, because I'm still searching too.
They're not gonna be ready for the truth about Hitler.
No, they're not. Because everybody wants to think that slavery and the Holocaust, was
Right.
legitimate. And no, listen, until you look at the alternative viewpoints, you ain't got no truth in your head, okay? Until
Right.
you look at the alternative information. Don't tell me what you've been spoon-fed, okay?
That's
Because what I've been spoon-fed, I've discarded pretty much 90% of what I've been spoon-fed, because it was garbage. It wasn't beneficial to me. It didn't serve my interest.
Right.
And it doesn't serve people as the interest. Black people, white people in this country need to come together, not be divided. And I don't need to lead them, and they don't need to lead me. We need to come together and work together to build a society where it's fair to all of us.
Here's what's happening, and this is going to call for another. It's going to be another sermon for another Sunday. But here's what's happening: the whites and the blacks are a little bit starting to try to come towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing now is against the masculine versus the feminine.
Oh yeah.
Or the feminine versus the masculine.
Oh, you're gonna step on a lot of toes bringing that up.
I keep telling people, and like I said, that's another sermon for another Sunday. We ain't gonna go into that deep now, but we probably have to come back to it. But here's the thing: you have LGBTQ, the feminists, the Black Lives Matter, the
Antifa.
What's up?
Antifa.
Antifa, and the other Me Too movement. And I keep telling folks, all of them are the same.
They got their existence off of the Black Revolution of the 60s, okay? Because there was the civil rights movement, and there was the Black Revolution. Stokely Carmichael led SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Stokely Michael made a big mistake when he evicted the whites out of SNCC, because when he evicted the whites out of SNCC, they went organized on their own, and they came up with all this stuff. No, we were fighting for civil rights for ourselves, okay, for the most part. We wasn't caring about no homosexual rights. We wasn't caring about Me Too movement or none of that stuff, okay? We were just concerned about, getting basic rights for our people in this country. When Stokely Carmichael evicted the whites out of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they went and organized around all of these other agendas. That's why when the African People's Socialist Party, he did a favor. So, but when the African People's Socialist Party came around, which was the WHO movement, they said, okay, no, we're going to bring these whites back, and we're going to have them to work under the leadership of us, and we're going to address issues that's key to Black people. Now, I'm not saying I'm in unity with that anymore, because I know the shortcomings of that, but I'm just telling you that was one of the major contradictions. That's how whites were able to go out there and organize on this, what I call frivolous rights. Because really, homosexuality, listen, I got my own viewpoint about it. We may even have homosexuals listening on this phone. But I met a friend that was in a homosexual relationship for over 26 years, a woman. And she said, when she read the Bible, she said, we stopped our relationship. Both of us came to agreement that this isn't scientific. It isn't according to the biblical law. We need to disregard this type of relationship. And I respected her for that because I don't see anything scientific about it. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. If you want to do it, that's up to you. But the point is, don't try to make it like it's got to be taught in the schools and through this what you want to call it, transgender studies and things like that. No, I don't want my children learning that. I just don't.
Critical race theory.
Well, critical race theory dealing with the falsehoods of Black history.
Right.
Yeah, that transgender stuff is
Man,
dealing with these.
they include all of that.
Oh, they
stuff.
probably are. They probably sneaking it in there. Then yeah.
They include
Good point.
everything.
And if you got, if the audience, if you all didn't know, Disney and Marvel, Disney owns Marvel now, and Disney is pushing transgenderism all throughout your kids' education.
And for Black folks to be so holy and holier than thou, they should be in the uproar. I'm not much of a religious person. Okay, I'm more of a spiritual person. But you got these Bible thumpers out here and these holy rollers out here. They should be up in arms fighting against this stuff. But they got more of them in the church. They got more in the church than anywhere, and they accepting it. I said, come on now. This
is an example, you guys, of them taking away your rights, whether you be white or Black. You know what I'm saying? This is an example of the left or communism taking away your rights. So if you are a church person or a church goer, you know, then your rights are being invaded upon with the LGBTQ community and with all these other things.
You sent me that thing this weekend.
You should be mad too. You should be mad about that too.
You sent me that video this weekend, Tone.
Oh, yeah. About the guy walking, the trans walking down
in the church at the Sunday morning.
And the guy in
I
the
sent
church.
it. I think I sent it. Oh no, you sent it to me. Oh, did I send
Tony
it
sent it to me. Tony sent it to me.
Yeah, the guy actually introduced her.
Yeah.
And
he came out with a dress on and everything, performed in front of the church.
Yeah.
And the church was, applauding and everything.
And walking with the child in the hand.
Yeah. That to me, that is, all great civilization deteriorate from within first. And that's what we're doing. We're imploding. We're self-destructing. And so anybody who walks in this country, these border walkers, these people coming across the border, probably going to be the next ones controlling this country because we're enabling their activity. We're enabling them to do what they're doing.
Exactly.
Open borders, and then the transgenderism and critical race theory. I'm not for either one, not critical race theory or transgenderism, because critical race theory gives a false narrative of history, Black history in specific.
Right.
Well, there was a thing that you touched on earlier when you mentioned AOC and all these other people.
Squad.
Squad and all of these guys. There's something that when you with communism, one of the things in communism is you got to put on a show. So like the other week, I think AOC she pretended, but they called her out.
Handcuffs.
I think they pretended that she was in handcuffs. So that's one of the things of communism. You have to let people see that you're willing to die, or kind of willing to go to jail or whatever. So she did it for show, and that's one of the things that they're doing to us. They giving us all these narratives. Just last week or a week before, you had I think how to prepare for a nuclear bomb, nuclear fallout or whatever in New York. And so, because like Jay said earlier, we're coming up on election. So if I can control you through fear, then because I'm gonna cheat. So
the Queen James Bible, Tony, the gay Bible. Wow, who that, Jay?
This is a Queen James Bible, and I didn't know that they had this out until I heard Pastor Geno Jennings talk about this. The Queen James Bible, the gay Bible. So they took everything out in the Bible and rewrote it to try to fit the gay narrative. And they got a rainbow cross. So all of y'all who and I say this to a lot of our black women. We really need y'all to come back to us black men. These feminist movements, this LGBT, a lot of our black women support this LGBTQ stuff, thinking that it's cute. It ain't cute. You think it's cute, and at the same time, they're allowing transgender men to perform against you in sports.
And see that this is violating the laws of nature. Now we're talking about
The laws of
superior
nature.
law. This is universal law. This is natural law. We're in violation of natural law. Do you ever see that happening with any parts of the animal kingdom? Lions, tigers, bears, whatever. I mean, because they follow the laws of nature. We're deviating
right.
from the laws of nature. We're deviating from the laws of nature. And the further we're getting away, the more self-destructive we are becoming. Oh,
Bingo.
by the way, Arthur Kessler is the author of The 13th Tribe. Arthur Kessler, that's Koestler. That's going to help you to understand. Yeah, Arthur Kessler, thanks a lot. That's the author of The 13th Tribe. I've read that too. And that's a great book. And that's going to show you this Jewish question. I think that we need to deal with this Jewish question because this is the question that's allowing this type of contaminated behavior to manifest itself in our communities, because the same thing was did to Russia and to Germany. Okay, they weren't successful in creating a communist state in Germany, but they were in Russia, and the same programs were introduced there. All this vulgarity, introducing all this vulgarity in society, even getting rid of the Bible. I'm not a Bible thumper, but I don't mind if people that are religious that want to have the Bible. I'd rather see people, doing what the Bible says than going off of this LGBTQ, which is a gross violation of biblical law. More importantly, it's in gross violation of natural law.
That's right.
Natural law.
Now, I said to many people, I said, I got gay people in my family.
I do too.
I said, I know some transgenders that I'm just cool with. What's up? How you doing? And I know these transgenders that I know, they don't even support the LGBTQ.
That's another thing.
The LGBTQ is totally separate from the lifestyle that they want to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
The LGBTQ is an agenda.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And
that's what we're fighting against.
I don't have a right to judge anybody.
Right.
If that's your lifestyle, live it, do whatever you need to do, have at it. But the agenda itself is the problem. Let me get that back up. That Tony,
put that back up. Put it back up.
Put it right
I'm
back
just
up.
saying, go ahead, Jay. Keep talking. But all of that stuff is in this book, and it's relevant. It's relevant, guys. It's relevant.
You get rid of God, and the state becomes your God. So you get rid of anything that challenges the state's ability to rule itself, and God is one of the contending forces for the state. So in communism, you overthrow the biblical law. That's why over 65 million Orthodox Christians were overthrew at the Bolshevik Revolution, because they said the state is your God now. The state is your God. You no longer need the Bible. You no longer need individualism. We're working as a collective.
Right.
That's what communism is about.
That's the very thing behind that word Zionism.
Oh, that's the key word.
That's the very thing behind it. Is the people, the collective, turn into your God.
And the 13th tribe shows you who introduced Zionism. The 13th tribe talks about the Ashkenazim, and that's who introduced the concept of Zionism. And Albert Einstein was a devout Zionist.
Mm-hmm.
The fake scientist, or whoever that man is y'all were talking about earlier.
He gave theory. He didn't actually give facts. And that's one of the things, again, I'm going to beat it over the head. That's one of the things they talk about in the book. We're going to give them theories and not facts.
Not facts.
So,
right. So
Yeah.
let me ask you guys this, because we getting ready to get to the point we're going to close out. And I really love the conversation. What I want to ask you guys, are you guys familiar? And if you are familiar with it, would you guys want to come back and have a conversation on this by itself? Agenda 21. Are you guys familiar with that?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I know a little bit about it.
Okay.
Tony.
I have a young lady who was deep rooted in that knowledge, and I probably want to add her to the conversation as well. for the next round. So it'll be 4 of us.
Okay.
Well, Jay, you got to realize it ain't Agenda 21 no more. It's Agenda 2030.
2030.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard of Agenda 2030, but things kind of got thrown off course when somebody named TRUMP came in, and he kind of set them back some years. So now we're talking about Agenda 2030. So, you know, when you hear Biden talk about, you know, we're going to have electric cars and everybody's got, all of the car dealerships have to be compliant by a certain day, 2026, you're talking about Agenda 2030. When Bill Gates talks about all of these vaccines and everybody's going to be vaccinated by a certain year, you're talking about Agenda 2030.
Got it.
So it's been updated. It's been updated because it was kind of thrown off course a little bit. 21 was.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you mentioned about the electric cars, I want everybody to know something. It takes 60,000 tons of lithium to produce these electric cars. And in order for them to get 60,000 tons of lithium, they need 30 million tons of earth. They have coals that's bigger and deeper than the craters, probably on the craters you see on the moon, probably deeper than that they're digging up to create lithium. Another product that they're using is cobalt.
And who has control of that?
China. China owns 15 out of 19 cobalt mines in Congo.
Yeah.
And they're using Congo children for slave labor to carry and dig up to work in these mines. These are children that is in dangerous mines to dig up cobalt. And it's dangerous there. They got kids. And when I say kids, I'm not talking about 18, 19. I'm talking about minors. Probably as young as 10 years old.
And shame on the parents and the African community there in the Congo that's allowing that to happen. Don't get up and play victim and act like, oh, look what they're doing to our children. You allowing that, parents. The parents of those children shouldn't let their children participate in that.
Exactly. And if you guys want to revert, I did a video on it like 2 weeks ago about electric cars. Does it really save the planet? I did that because guess what? They talking about electric cars saving the planet. ExxonMobil said that's not even the big part of the fund for them is diesel. So all of this about electric cars, they had to use diesel gas trucks to carry all of this load of stuff that they bringing up for lithium.
Man, listen, it's all a lie, Jay. It's all a lie. That's what I was saying earlier in this podcast. That every 90% of the things that they tell us is just a lie, and it's frivolous, and it has no basis to it. Just like when they telling us now about, you know, saving the planet and going green and all this other stuff. They got us thinking that the planet is, you know, is going into what is it? Getting hotter and hotter and
warmer, global warming.
Yeah, global warming and all this other stuff. They talking about Fukushima. I remember that being a talk back in 2016, 2017, and they talk about how Fukushima was going to be over here coming from the from the west, and it's going to be over here. Man, listen, it's 2022 now, and where's Fukushima at? You see what I'm saying? But where's Fukushima? And then there's another one, Chernobyl. You know, all this big talk about Chernobyl. Where's Chernobyl at? And where's all of the side effects? What about what's the Japanese town, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, when they supposedly nuclear bombed it, and where's all of the radiation fall out from that? Because according to them, the radiation should last centuries. But the next couple of days, Japan was up and running. If you look at some of any of the old clips of the bombings from when these guys got bombed, how come the streets were clear? But all of the buildings, except for maybe a couple concrete buildings, how come all of the buildings like wood and, you know, those kinds of buildings, how come they all burned down? A few of the concrete buildings were still standing. Some of the steel bridges and concrete bridges were still standing. But the streets were just as clear. So where's the radiation fallout? This is what they constantly lying to us. They talk about how the earth is a globe, the earth is flat, blah, blah. All I know is, and we can have that discussion another day because that's a very intense topic. But all I know is NASA is taking $50 million a day from us because of our misbeliefs.
We're giving them $50 million a day.
We're giving it to them because we think things are the way they paint it. And a lot of our world in which we live is CGI and made up false realities. And they got us believing in it. And they got us, going around here, do rang gang yang me, and all this other stuff, thinking that, would believe me, whatever I say. Meanwhile, it can be further from the truth.
And we believe everything they say, and we care to. Hey, not to cut you off, though, Tone. Somebody said I'm trying to read some of the stuff in here. 911 and also the link who killed JFK. We can talk about that too, because Michael Collins Piper has a good book out on 911 and who killed JFK. And you best believe
who killed JFK. We talked about him earlier. We've been talking about him this whole podcast.
Yeah, you best believe that there was Jewish input.
And his limo driver was the one who put the fatal shot in him. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I get in trouble, but his limo driver was the one who turned around and put the fatal shot in his head.
Wow. But if you want to read more on that, look at Michael Collins Piper book on who killed Kennedy. That Michael Collins Piper got a good book, and of course he's now dead. He was one of the outspoken people and critical of the so-called Jewish controversy that we cannot mention because we automatically become an anti-Semite.
Yeah, somebody said you might want to check out a book called William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse.
Behold the Pale Horse. That talks about Area 51.
But guys, listen, I'm glad I got these two giants to come on here tonight. I spoke to William earlier today. He said, "Hey man," I told him, I said, "Hey, I gotta get you on the podcast." He said, "Let me call Tony, man," because I said he's up on what's up. He said, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna get Tony on here." I said, "Let's get him on here, man." Fellas, I really appreciate you guys, man.
Appreciate you letting us come on.
Oh yeah.
Very,
very in depth, very educational podcast this evening. This is the longest I've done it, and it's worth every minute of it too. So, is there a way, William Crowley, that anyone can reach out to you? Are you reachable to the public?
Yeah, you can reach me. You can reach me on my phone number 727-798-3092, or email me at creditman47@yahoo.com. Phone number once again 727-798-3092, and email is creditman47@yahoo.com. If you do email me, I get a lot of junk mail. Send me a text and say that you did email me so I can check for yours. Katina Lee, this is very informative. You guys need to do this again soon. Thanks.
I plan on it.
We want people to start reading this information, and because we don't want, we're not the authorities on this. We just looking at alternative information. Like Tony presented some stuff. Me and Tony go back and forth on this flat Earth and all like that. And I'm not saying that it's not flat or round. I'm just saying that if you say it's flat, then I need to review some documentation on that too. I want to see the pros and the cons of it on anything, because if they're telling me it's round, more than likely it's flat.
Right. Right. What about you, Tony? Do you have anything that you want to leave with everybody? Any way they can contact you if you are contactable?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook as Tony Carlton. And then you can also email me at amp1268 at yahoo.com. amp1268 at yahoo.com.
Well, there you go, folks. You got it. Listen, I want to, before we go, I always ask you guys for 4 favors. I used to get asked for 3, but I'll now ask for 4. Let me start with the first one. Favor number 1, turn the damn TVs off. Turn the damn TVs off. You can do what I do. I look on TV because I'm looking for something on YouTube that's going to help enhance my thinking, my mind. Or if I want to watch a movie, I know exactly what I want to watch, and that is it. I don't follow the mainstream media. I call it the lamestream media. I don't follow that. Folks, turn it off. Please, turn that crap off. Second favor is that you guys see you've seen the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. If this video was not for you, it's okay. I get it. It's not for everybody. We're not looking for everybody, only those who get it. So if you are interested in knowing more, watch the video, reach out to us. And if you don't, if it wasn't for you, it's for somebody you know or you love. If you ate some cookies and it wasn't for you, you give it to somebody who liked the cookies. So share the video anyway, okay? Third, you guys see my scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I do ask for a small donation of $20 or less. It's not mandatory. It's up to you. It's whatever's on your heart. Donate to the podcast. Why do I say donate to the podcast? Because I don't need your money. I'm okay with money. You see my light here. You see my camera. You see my laptop here. And look, you see my background. I don't have that window sitting back here anymore. I got a backdrop now. So $80 of your donations contribute to that. I paid over $200 for it. 80 of it came from you guys contributing. So $20 or less. I'm not asking for $40, $50, and $60. If you send me that much, I will reject it. Why? Because I'm a transparent guy. I'm not asking for that much money. Just $20 or less. I don't care if you donate $2. That's a donation. So feel free to do that. It's $ J Hunter Lee. Feel free to cash out the donation if you like, or you don't have to. It doesn't matter. But I'm just asking you to do that. And lastly, I want to ask you guys to do me one last big favor, and that is to sing like no one can hear you, dance like no one can see you, love like you've never been hurt, and live like it's heaven on earth. I'm J Hunter Lee. This is William Crowley, and this is Amp LeGrant. We love you, and the world needs you, and it ain't nothing you can do about it. So stop that damn texting and driving. Peace and blessings, folks. I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.
All right, brother.